But talking about wars, the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, and now there seems to be a decisive turning point, or is this yet another passing cloud? We'll know in the next few days. But Trump and his 28-point peace plan, it looks like it's finally going to bring a glimmer of hope and peace to Ukraine and end the nearly 4-year-long war between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine seems to be coming around to accepting the terms of this plan, even though it heavily favors Russia. Russia, meanwhile, is stepping up its attacks on Kyiv and other cities in Ukraine in the hope that it can force Ukraine into submission. Will Donald Trump and his arm twisting make Zelenskyy and Europe fold, or will they still manage to continue to fight against a far more superior Russian force, which currently is winning the battle on the battlefield? America jump-started its plans to end the nearly 4-year-old Ukraine war when it presented a 28-point peace plan last week. There's been a lot of criticism thereafter that much of Trump's peace plan echoed the talking points of the Kremlin. Nonetheless, after multiple rounds of talks over the weekend and beyond, the 28-point peace plan was reduced to less than 20 points, and now all sides seem to be coming closer to a common ground. Trump said in a social media post that there are only a few remaining points of disagreement on his peace proposal. He also said that he was sending Steve Witkoff, his special envoy, to meet with Russia's President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. Trump also said that he was sending Daniel Driscoll, who is the U.S. Army Secretary, to meet with Ukrainian officials. But Trump did add a word of caution. He said he plans to meet with President Putin soon, but only after a deal is finalized or is near finalization. American and Russian officials held talks on Tuesday in Abu Dhabi about this proposed deal. This deal, of course, heavily favors Russia. Ukraine has indicated that its President Volodymyr Zelenskyy was prepared to go to Washington to finalize the deal with Trump.
Secretary Rubio, Special Envoy Witkoff, the whole team really worked through the points of that 28-point peace plan that the United States authored with input from both sides, the Russians and the Ukrainians. And ultimately, the vast majority of these points have been agreed upon. The Ukrainians have worked on language with us together, and you heard that from their delegation directly yesterday. So we feel as though we're in a very good place. Of course, we have to make sure that all of these points are agreed to, and then, of course, we're going to have to make sure the other party in this war, the Russians, agree to them as well.
Separately, there was some embarrassment for the Trump administration after a Bloomberg story about some leaked audio conversations between Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy, and a senior Russian official. In the leaked audio, Witkoff reportedly was on a phone call last month with senior Kremlin official Yuri Ushakov. In the conversation, Witkoff is heard telling Ushakov on how to pitch a peace plan before Donald Trump. It paints Trump as a leader who can very easily get flattered. Witkoff also suggests that it should be similar to the 20-point peace plan in Gaza, which he had helped clinch. This conversation, for the very first time, offers direct insight into Trump's recent tactics when it comes to negotiating with Russia. This phone call appears to be the genesis of the 28-point peace proposal put forth by Trump. Now, Witkoff says Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, was the original author of this plan. Both Witkoff and Kushner had helped negotiate the Gaza peace plan. This after a lot of back and forth between the State Department and then Secretary Rubio, a bunch of senators. Initially, it seemed like this was not drafted by the White House, only for the State Department and for Secretary of State Marco Rubio to walk back on those comments later.
Well, that was just a map. All that was is a map. That was not a plan. It was a concept. And from there, they've taken each one of the 28 points, and then you got down to 22 points. A lot of them were solved, and actually very favorably solved. So we'll see what happens.
Do you think that Ukraine was being asked to give too much land back to Russia? I know at one point you said they shouldn't have to give any back.
It's really up. Look, the way it's going, if you look, it's just moving in one direction. So eventually that's land that over the next couple of months might be gotten by Russia anyway. So do you want to fight and lose another 50, 60,000 people? Or do you want to do something now? In some cases, the land is going in the other direction. So they're negotiating, they're trying to get it done.
But there is nothing to suggest that Putin would agree to the terms of the deal, even if it is heavily favorable to the Kremlin. Putin said earlier this month that he believed the American plan could be the basis of a peace settlement. He told senior officials at a meeting of the Russian Security Council that the peace plan had not been discussed in detail yet with America. But he also stressed that Moscow had received a copy of this peace plan. Putin's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov insists that the plan has to reflect, both in letter and spirit, what was agreed to between Trump and Putin when they met in Alaska back in August. Some of Ukraine's Western allies, Britain, France and Germany, all of whom make up the so-called coalition of the willing and were not involved in Trump's plan, met by video conference to discuss the peace deal and future security guarantees for Ukraine. Those security guarantees are among the major sticking points which are still under negotiation. But that's not all. They also need to thrash out how much territory Ukraine needs to give up and by how much it needs to reduce the size of its standing army, both of which are construed as extremely playing into Russia's hands. But that is not changing the reality on the ground. Russia launched a deadly barrage of missiles and drones on the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, even as it showed willingness to the Trump peace plan. The attack on Kyiv, the capital, killed at least 7 people and injured 20 others. Since last week, when a Russian missile strike killed at least 40 people in the western city of Ternopil, there's been a significant step up of Russian attacks on Ukraine. Russia is now seeking to press forward with its battlefield advantage. Russia has also been closing in on the eastern city of Pokrovsk, which is critical for it to establish control over all of the Donetsk region. Russia has been consistently maintaining that it wants control of all of eastern Donbass, where a majority of residents are Russian speakers. For Putin, Trump's peace plan is a win-win. For the Russian leader, a Kremlin-friendly peace plan that enshrines Ukraine to be perpetually in subordination would be a big win. It would enable Russia to declare victory after annexing the 4 eastern provinces, which it already claims. But even if the Trump peace plan were to fail, Putin can always blame it on Zelenskyy. He will also make sure that Trump holds Zelenskyy responsible for the failure of the peace deal. That would force Trump to pull out any remaining support for Ukraine and further antagonize Europe. Without America's support, Ukraine will find it increasingly difficult to keep up its war effort or even have a country to defend.